Alrighty, folks, go on. This is Matt here for Dark Linux Tech Gamers, the fusion of Linux technology and gaming. And we are taking a look at a video of somebody I've reacted to before, wasn't a big fan. And they are asking, should you switch to Linux from Windows? Know this first. Now, if I remember correctly, this particular person seems to be very much stuck in the Windows mind frame and mindset. So whether or not they actually really give a damn or have tried Linux, because a lot of these guys, unfortunately, a lot of these guys I've reacted to tend to be, I used it 15, 20 years ago. It's very different, bro. That's like comparing Windows to Windows. It's very different. So, yeah, let's get into hear what Homeboy here has to say, and hopefully it's somewhat fucking intelligent. Guess we'll find out.
Is switching to Linux from Windows the right move for you? So before you make any decisions, I'm going to show you what you get when you set up your Linux system for the first time and what you need to do to get up and running as quickly as possible. And I will also tell you who absolutely should not be switching over to Linux. So let's start with the hardware. And this is not really a thing in Linux, as it runs on virtually any hardware. If you're running Windows now, odds are pretty darn good that Linux will work for you. So no need to spend money on new hardware, and of course, the software is free as well. Now, you have...
Oh, the nonchalant, it's free! Bruh, there's paid software just as much as there is non-paid software. Free as in open source software, or FOSS, FLOSS, whatever fucking terminology people want to use in the open source Linux community. Do whatever you do. There's paid for proprietary apps too, so don't. The software store that most people are going to get accustomed to, yes, most of the shit in there is free, as in the price of it, as well as the prerequisite freedoms and all the other stuff that everybody will always expound over the GPL and all the other stuff. As far as the hardware, if it runs Windows, it'll run Linux, and if it generically Macs run Linux, Linux can fit on pretty much fucking anything on this point. People literally, the joke is it'll run on your refrigerator. The sad part is it probably runs on your refrigerator, especially if it's Samsung, because if I remember correctly, Samsung can put in a lot of work into Tizen, which is Mobile Amigo, which is aka Linux. So yeah, anyway, let's keep rolling.
Have to select the Linux distribution. You want something that is a nice graphical interface where you can use your mouse and not have to learn a bunch of commands. You want something that closely resembles Windows so you can start working with the least amount of frustrations. But if you search which is the best Linux distro for beginners, man, you're going to be bombarded by millions of opinions of which is the best. And honestly, it doesn't really matter when you're just dipping your toes in to see what this is all about. I mean, I like Pop! OS, which is very easy to use and has a very window-ish feel to it. I also like Mint for the exact same reason. The one I'm going to go with is Zorin OS. But with all of these, you can try them without removing Windows, so you can decide which one you like. They all have great tutorials on how to install them. Just simply follow them along, but essentially the process is the same. Once you boot into your chosen Linux system, you will have the options to try it or to install it. If you click on try it, you can click around and see what it's got to offer and see which one is more intuitive for you. When you try it, it doesn't actually touch your Windows or your data. So try them all, pick your favorite, and then go ahead and install it. And what's great is that there are loads of tutorials on YouTube on how to install your chosen Linux distro, and you can choose if you want a dual boot system, so you still have the option to have Windows on the one drive and then Linux on the other drive. So let's dive into Zorin OS.
Okay, so dual boot. I tend to not recommend dual boot because Windows tends to not fucking play nice with operating systems on the same drive. Now, if you have two drives, that is a totally different story. Second part, as far as pick your distro, you are correct. There are a ton of distros. Most normal, sane fucking Linux users will point, depending on the user and their technical level, will point them in the right direction of where they need to go. If they are the mom and pop, I don't care. Technology is a tool. Zorin, Ubuntu, Pop OS. The list goes on and on, man, et cetera, et cetera. Like I could name 75 other fucking distros. The point is, on that end of the spectrum, for new users, there are a ton of distros. What you failed to actually mention, though, and kind of brush off, is in order to get the shit to boot from USB, generically most Windows systems now in the last since 2015-ish, have UEFI and secure boot. Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you have to disable secure boot. Therein lies the problem. Most people won't fucking do that, and most people tend to ignore that step, i.e. like you. And that's going into the BIOS or / UEFI settings and disabling secure boot. Most people aren't gonna fucking do it. Okay, anyway, he's using his Zorin OS as a base. Cool, whatever.
So this is what the environment looks like. Pretty much familiar, right? There's a start button on the left-hand side with all your menu options. Next to it, there's something called workspaces, which allows you to work in different environments. Then you got the Firefox, which is your web browser. Then you got your files, which is, well, basically where you're going to keep all your files, very much like File Manager that we have on Windows. All right, and let's close that down. Next up, we've got your software, which is essentially your store for all your software, like the App Store on our mobile phones, like the Microsoft Store on Windows. And of course, you can find all the utilities and all the apps and all the software that you possibly could need right here. Some is already pre-installed, and you can uninstall them if you don't like them. And there's an option for very quick updates to see which of the apps actually need an update. And a simple click just does it for you. Continuing our little tour, on the right-hand side at the bottom, here you see the type of connection that you have, Bluetooth, your night light. You can enable or disable them with a simple click of a button. You can even have an option to capture things on your screen, and it can either be a static image or a little video clip. Next to it is the setting signs, which we'll get into it. Here is the lock icon, which basically means you can lock your computer, and then you can sign back in when you're ready. All right, let's put our password in, and let's carry on. And then on the very last option, you got the option to power your system down. And let's just go back to the start button. And here you can see things are already grouped together under certain categories. This happens to be your accessory categories. If you go back, you can go through each one of them and see what's actually pre-installed and ready for you to go. On the right-hand side of that little menu, here is where you see little personalization options, and you can click onto them. And again, everything is like Windows. Everything you can click, you can change. Now, let's right-click on the Start button, and then let's go into Settings. So if this sounds familiar, well, it should, because Windows does the same thing. And here is where you'll find everything that you need in order to set up your machine and go through the settings. Things like Bluetooth, you can add more devices, changing the background. You can just go down this list and customize your machine as you want it to be. So far, so easy. Now,
so yes, having the comparison to your prior stuff makes sense for most users. However, it is not Windows. If you constantly keep referring to something of, it's just like your blah blah prior experience, you're setting people up for failure solely based on the fact that they are gonna treat it like their prior fucking experience. This is the part that I hate. Oh god. This is the part I fucking hate about some of these videos. It's like, oh, it's just like, no, it's fucking different. If this guy was talking Mac and it's like, oh, it's a little bit different than Windows, regardless of its flavors in desktops or whatever flavor you're going to choose, I don't really care. And yes, before somebody said, oh, distros don't matter, they fucking do. What I'm going to say is, if you constantly tell it, it's just like blah, blah, like your prior experience, no, you can show that there's similarities. But don't say it's just like, because it sets the expectation of it's going to act like the thing you're coming from, and it doesn't. The shit irks me.
Now, let's install something and see how that goes.
Let me show you how we do stuff around here.
Actually, my department uses Monday.com, so I'm good.
Work management.
Okay, so fire up Firefox, and I like Chrome, so I'm going to go to the...
Thank you, YouTube, and your fucking shitty ad policy currently. And some of that's on the creator. But the point remains. Anyway, shall we keep continuing?
Chrome website, and I'm going to click on the download Chrome, and let's see what it does. Oh look, it recognized Chrome for Linux, and that's exactly what we want. So we click on accept and install and go through the normal motions. Once it's on our computer, we can simply open it up, and then it opens up this little screen saying choose an application to open the .deb file. And now we have a bunch of options: software install, archive manager, or install Linux application. I'm just going to choose install Linux application. The screen pops up and I simply click on install. Now with Linux security, you will have to put in your super user password when you do things that changes the system, like installing a new application. That's good security. It's like the administrator password on Windows. And there you go. There is your Chrome installed. And now what we're going to do is I want to pin this to my taskbar. So I'm going to unpin Firefox because I don't need to use that. I'm then going to go to the internet section. There's my Google Chrome. Right click on that. And then I select the option to pin to dash. So now I learned that dash is the equivalent of your Windows taskbar. All right, so that was pretty straightforward. So next up, what about email? Now, I use Microsoft Outlook. I don't use Gmail as my primary email. So let's see what Zorin has to offer. Now, it does come pre-installed with Evolution, which is like the Outlook equivalent. Okay, so let's click on the Zorin icon and let's type there Evolution. So it does the good old search thing. There is Evolution right there. Now, it's the first time that I'm installing it and using it, so I need to give it the information that it needs, like my name, the service that it's connecting to, the organization name, all the things that your normal Outlook client would need, or any email client that you set up on your phone. Okay, and basically it's a regular email application. Your inbox, your outbox, your sent items. And of course, to send a new mail, you press the new mail button and you can address it. You can attach a file and automatically opens up into your home folder, which is where your files are all kept. All pretty standard stuff. And as we did before, type Evolution. There it is. There's a whole bunch of shortcuts, but the one we want is pin to dash. And there we go. Our system is ready to rock and roll. Okay, now we're getting emails. Now what about Word and PowerPoint and Excel and PDFs and JPEG files? Well, obviously we're going to need to use our data when we move it across from Windows to Linux. So let's check those out next. Right, I got a bunch of files on a USB stick. As soon as I connect to it, there it is. It recognizes that it's there. Now I can go to my file manager at the bottom, click on that. Now I'll go click on the USB flash drive, and here are all the files that I've just copied across from my Windows machine. I select them all, right click, and copy. Then I go to my home folder, go to my documents, and I simply paste them in there. Copy and paste works perfectly well here as well. So do these files actually open? Well, let's go try each one. So let's try with the Word document. Oh, LibreOffice opens, and because that's already pre-installed on Zorin OS. And this looks awfully familiar again. I keep referring back to it, the fact that it's so similar to what we're used to. We shouldn't really be afraid of this. Look how close it is. Oh, I misspelled something. I need to add something to the dictionary. Right click, add to dictionary, right click, spell check. Everything that we're used to, and it just works and opens well. Right, let's try the next one. This one is a PDF. So let's maximize it. So we take the entire screen. That's a property valuation on some property. PDF files works just well. Hasn't lost the formatting. It's all there exactly how you expect. Close that down. What about an Excel document? Yep, LibreOffice opens it, and there it is. Looks exactly the same as Excel. Did I mention that LibreOffice comes pre-installed and you don't have to pay for it either? I mean, there's no ads as far as I can see. It's just there, so why not use it? Okay, let's close down Excel. Next up, we got 2 JPEG files. Can you cycle between them as you normally would? Yep, that works perfectly fine as well. And what else have we got? Now we've got a PowerPoint. Does that work perfectly fine? Or, yep, there it is. It even looks exactly the same. Things are where they're supposed to be. So you gotta admit, it's pretty awesome. So Linux isn't so scary after all. I mean, when you're getting started, you don't.
This is the guy who did a video like 2 or 3 years ago that talked about how Linux, you shouldn't use it and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't go how you think. Jesus Christ. I just don't care about this guy's opinion. I'm going to be brutally honest. If you're going to use Linux, use it. I've gotten to the point in my crusty old age, I don't fucking care. What I care about is people presenting it right. And if you want to do a tour and a rundown and all that stuff, cool. You do you for your audience, bro. The selling points of like, oh, it's free. Oh, it doesn't spy on you. Oh, it doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't fucking track you. You control it, unlike Adobe telling you to fuck off now with its, oh, we own your content shit, essentially. So, yeah, it's free as in my content is my content. I'm not being served ads in my file browser. I'm not being served ads in my fucking taskbar. I'm not having shitty pre-installed games, no matter how many fucking times I uninstall them, reinstalled. So, as far as you keep saying, oh, it's like blah, blah, blah. My only bitch about that is you're setting people up for failure, because while certain things are going to be familiar, familiar is not the same. Familiarity has similar experiences, but being the same. It's the same as Windows. No, it is not, because Linux, regardless of its distribution, you're going to run into your own set of problems at some fucking point. Generally speaking, as most users will do with technology, and it doesn't matter if they're the tech make go boom or, the super deep, I'm going to build my own cyber deck type of folks. They all run into technological problems. But selling it as something that it's not is something I can't stand. And people leaving out steps to get to that experience fucking annoys me. He has done both of these, which also fucking annoys me. I don't give a shit that he charges lower in OS. Cool. I actually think it is one of the better ones for new users. But there are a ton of those to me. It all depends on the user. Like, what are they looking for? If they're the more technologically inclined, then they're probably going to want something a little different than an Ubuntu-based distro or a Debian-based distro, an RPM-based distro, whatever. That's all their flavor, So all I ever recommend when it comes to Linux distributions is knowing the fucking audience. This is why when I did my tier list video, which I can't fucking stand doing tier list videos, especially as it relates to Linux distros, because you have to individualize it to the fucking user. And like I said, a lot of the times these guys just leave out steps, they gloss over it, they oversell it, and again, overselling it.
You don't have to jump into terminal and learn all these new commands. You can easily get up and running pretty much from the moment you install it. And everything is very Windows-like. You can go through the menus and enable and disable stuff so your computer works just the way you want it to. But before you decide, here are some warnings. If you have loads of complicated Office apps with complicated macros, you're really going to struggle. If you have any company apps or things that only work on Windows, like you have hardware peripherals that plug into your computer, those may not work as those drivers may not have Linux compatibility. You could try using something like Wine or Bottles, which are systems that kind of have Windows apps to work on Linux. Let me know if you want to see a video about that. Now, gamers, you're going to struggle too. Now, Linux has come a long way for gamers, but it's still not perfect. I am personally not a gamer, so for me, it's not an issue, but I thought I would mention that in case you are. Oh, and contrary to popular belief and those wonderful YouTube comments, Linux is not problem-free. It's not like you will set up your Linux system and never have any issues. Just like any operating system, issues do pop up. So plan on investing some time learning. It isn't Windows, it's a brand new operating system. The terminal commands, you're going to have to get into them at some point. But Linux is absolutely usable to get you working very quickly, right from the beginning with very little learning. So, if you don't want to keep running Windows or have hardware that simply cannot take Windows 11 or Windows 12, or are just tired of Microsoft doing whatever they want to with their updates and their ads and AI and all that privacy stuff in Windows, then perhaps it's time to give Linux a real shot. Now remember, you are going to need to back up your data on your Windows computer so that you have the ability to use it on your Linux computer. So I've got a video right here on how to back stuff up. Give the video a quick like before you head out, and I will see you in this video.
It's typical Windows user talking about Linux that has used Linux. I don't know how much. To me, it's an oversell, under-deliver situation. As far as like the complicated macros, well, it depends, because like there are other alternatives besides LibreOffice. That's the one that it ships with. But any Linux user who knows their Linux operating systems and the offerings of available software are going to tell you try WPS Office or SoftMaker Office, which tend to claim more compatibility, or only Office, or insert other Office apps here. As far as gamers, you know, I don't hear a bitch and whine about, if you go to Mac, you're going to have a hard time. No, if you go to Mac, you're going to have a hard time fucking gaming. And I can speak to that as a person who owns a goddamn Mac. Gaming on it is fucking atrocious. Not only are you limited to whatever is supported on the OS because you have no Proton layer, which you do on Linux, you also are limited because some games were never updated to 64-bit only, and Steam will tell you this may not work, this won't work. So you just limited your library even more. So I really wish people would approach this in a more thorough manner than they do. And it really does drive me up a wall sometimes. So like, you know, the undersell of like changing your boot drives and all that stuff. They don't. He doesn't fucking mention that. That's gonna turn 90% of most users right the fuck off. Like burning the actual ISO is the fucking easy part. What's the keyboard combination to actually get to my BIOS and UEFI settings? That's a whole different fucking can of worms, because insert whatever fucking keyboard combination your manufacturer decided to fucking be. So, as far as gamers, yeah, like if you're big into multiplayer games, there are multiplayer games available. Are they necessarily going to be all the ones that you want? No. But if you're looking at a Mac or whatever, it's going to be the same deal. You're going to run into stuff that does not have equivocals to the platform you're leaving. You will find stuff that are alternatives. You will find stuff that functions, the end result is what you want, but the functionality and the way they get there is going to be very different. And if you are not open to that, then don't switch. That is totally your prerogative, and you're right. See, this is where other Linux users will tell you, like, oh, Microsoft and their AI and all the other shit. And I'm not a fan of Microsoft. I'm not a fan of the AI nonsense. I am not a fan of all the stupid shit Microsoft does. But if that's your bag and that's where you're comfortable, who the fuck am I to tell you otherwise? I will give you the options, and what you decide to do with your PC, i.e. personal computing experience, is your fucking choice. I just want people to have the information so they can make their own informed choice. And yet again, undersell, oversimplifying stuff and skipping steps tends to make the experience seem a lot easier. And when you sell it as it's similar or it's the same as blah, blah, or what you're coming from, you're going to set people up for failure. And that shit annoys the fuck out of me, because you're setting people's expectations to where they shouldn't be, because you're taking the thing that they need to understand that, and that it's different. And while you do say it at the end of the video, you don't drive home the point that it's fucking different. Because you constantly say it's the same as Windows. sometimes these videos hurt. This one, like, the overview of Zorn, totally fine. I really didn't have much to say about it, but like how you present it, that's what irks me. It's not that easy. And I'm not saying that as like it's hard either. I'm just saying it's different. Having prior experience and drawing on that prior experience is one thing. Because you can be like, oh, well, I've been in X. But as far as learning the terminal command, like there are people now that you really don't need terminal commands as much as a lot of people seem to fucking think. You can do it if you want, but you really don't need to. So I equate terminal commands now to very much like reg editing Windows to do shit you want it to do. That's what the terminal is to me. So what do I mean by that? I have the 1X Player Mini Pro over here. As a Windows system, that is Windows handheld, which is fucking atrocious on a handheld, mind you, touchscreen or not. The keyboard, when you poke at it and it's docked, does not pop up on the actual touchscreen device. You have to press a button to bring up the little shitty on-screen keyboard, the default, mind you, Windows on-screen keyboard, which is about a third the size of where it should be to actually type at it. Because it's just a floating fucking window. That's at the login screen. So I wanted it to auto log in. Oh, that's not a fucking option anymore. And I'll be damned if I'm using Microsoft Hello or any other goddamn security feature Microsoft decides to use for biometrics and shit. At the end of the day, I had to regedit shit in order for me to be able to auto log in. I don't have to do that in Linux. But the regedit was just as annoying to do as any Linux fucking command in the CLI. So, again, I just hate the way a lot of these guys present it because they set the user up for failure. Alternatives. It's different but similar. Like that's how you have to sell it. And people don't sell it that way. They tell you too much to draw on your prior experiences. Because, oh, if it's similar or it's the same or exactly the same, it should operate like the same. And it doesn't. So, other than that, rant over. I am done. I will catch you guys on the flip. You guys know what to do. And you got a Patreon and all that crap is down in the description. You want to watch the original video? It is also down there. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.